Across the UK, there are 278 high-rise residential blocks still with ACM cladding, the type used on Grenfell. But through Freedom of Information requests, the BBC has also identified at least 99 high-rise blocks covered in high-pressure laminate, or HPL. That's the type of cladding that caught fire at a student housing block in Bolton last year. Many councils could not or would not reveal how many high-rises have HPL cladding, so the true figure is likely to be far higher. Abigail Tubis and her husband bought their flat in a high-rise in Leeds shortly before the Grenfell fire. She's since found out that her building has a whole host of fire hazards, including flammable cladding, and she now faces bills in the thousands to resolve the issues.
We're just spending our lives in a very unsafe building. So from the side, the fact that we're obviously getting the cost given to us to amend the building to fix it, we're also having to live with the fact that our lives are potentially at risk as well.
You've told me that you've discovered that you had an HPL problem, but was it clear to you that that wasn't the end of it, that there was other aspects to the construction of your building that gave worry to the fire officers?
Yes, so the HPL is what I think a lot of people are focusing on, because that's the cladding and that's what people understand on the back of hearing about Grenfell. So our report actually states that our building doesn't have enough fire breaks between the floors and the walls. So if a fire were to break out, it wouldn't be contained in our flat. So it's not just the cladding that we're having to worry about.
How many stairwells are there in your building?
There's one, and we've got 12 floors. So I'm on the 9th floor, and I live above a lady who's 65 years old. And let's be honest, she's not going to be quick at getting out. I know there's people that live above me that have disabilities. If I was to have to think about escaping in a very, very, very quick time, because again, let me just remind you, we don't have fire breaks in our buildings, so a fire would spread and engulf other parts of the building extremely quickly. To all get down one stairwell, you just don't want to think about it, because you know it would be catastrophic.
Have you had a fire escape drill?
No, absolutely not. We haven't had anything like that. I think people are still confused that we are no longer stay put, we are simultaneous evacuation. We've just had a letter through the post, and if someone's missed that, they don't know what to do. You might have people still staying in their apartments.
Now, the fire brigade visited and initially wanted everyone out.
Yeah, absolutely. We were told by the management agent that we would potentially have to have a wake-in watch. And then a couple of days later, I noticed that we did have security guards who had little air horns. So I contacted our management agent and they said we had no choice. West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service came down on Friday evening to issue a prohibition notice and evacuate everyone and make everyone move out the building as a priority because of how unsafe our building was on the back of the report that they had seen.
Is it one of those situations where when you try to sleep you hear every noise? I mean, when trying to sleep becomes a very acute time for all your senses, for instance?
The amount of sleep that we all lost at the beginning wasn't even something I could even kind of get across. It was unbelievably stressful. I used to wake up and think, is this a bad dream that we're having? Is this for real? Have I actually got a man outside my flat door just watching in case of a fire? I was like, is this absolutely necessary? So when I did start reaching out to the fire service, they said, we've seen your report and you are extremely unsafe and at risk in that building because of what the report has found. So you must have this. If you don't have a wake and watch in place, your building will be shut down.
What does it do to your daily life, living on the 9th floor of a building judged to be unsafe? I imagine you can't look out at the view and admire it like you used to.
Let's just say, since I received the report in October, there hasn't been a waking moment where I haven't thought about this. I'm completely committed to pushing this, driving this forward, and I'm completely committed to pushing this and getting this scandal dealt with. Actually, someone from the Ministry of Housing to listen to us, meet us, hear what this impact is having on us, because I do nothing other than what me and my friend call it cladmin. All we do is finding ways to work with other people to push this awareness and get people on board and get this scandal tackled. If people can't afford the wake and watch, we've got people having to declare bankruptcy. £400 a month we're paying for wake and watch. That is double someone's mortgage. So to have to pay for that as well as saving for the remedial works is not feasible, it's not doable, and it's not our fault.
Abigail Tubis, live to Gary Porter. He's in charge of fire safety at the local government authority, also a Conservative member of the House of Lords. Welcome to BH, Lord Porter.
Good morning.
What do you think of Abby's story? How would you cope on the 9th floor?
I can't imagine from a personal perspective how you would be able to sleep safe at night knowing that your building has been built in a shoddy manner like that. We've got complete sympathy for everybody who lives in them type of buildings, and we urge the government to work with us and others to make sure that people can get these buildings remediated as quickly as possible.
It does feel, doesn't it, that the people who run the country don't live in buildings like this, and to be fair, that the people who work on the BBC on Sunday morning don't live on the 9th floor. It's a them and us problem.
No, it's definitely not. In the social sector, so council-owned buildings, we had 15 councils that were affected with buildings that we owned, and with the exception of one council, all of those have all been stripped of the ACM issue, but we've only just started to uncover the high-pressure laminate one. We've asked for a full audit of all of the high-rise buildings, and not just the ones that are at the height that the government have specified. It depends on the nature of the people living in the buildings. We've seen lower-rise buildings get completely destroyed by fire. Well, if they've got elderly people in there, they take as much time to evacuate as fit, healthy people living in a high-rise building. We've got a complete breakdown in building safety.
We've got a complete breakdown in building safety, Lord Porter.
Yeah, but it's not a party political point. That's the trouble. When they were debating it in Parliament last week, people were trying to score party political points. This problem's been going on in various forms since the 60s with the large-scale precast buildings. Then we had the deregulation of the building control system under both main parties and underneath the coalition, and we've had products that have been able to get certification to be safe when clearly they're not. These things are made of petrol. The high pressure laminate is petrol. The insulation sitting behind it quite often is petrol.
You're in charge of fire safety at the LGA, and you're telling our listeners this morning there's a complete breakdown in building safety.
Yep. I don't think anybody should try and hide behind any set of rules that say buildings are safe. High-rise buildings with complicated people and complicated needs do need to be looked at, every single one of them across the country. HPL will be a bigger problem than ACM.
Now, I'm thinking now of our listener in a building that is safe. And there are thousands of very well-constructed high-rise buildings with fire breaks, with sounding alarms, with the correct system. So we can say, can't we, that where the advice is given and where the checks have been made, there are perfectly safe flats and people are listening in them right now.
Yet the vast majority of buildings will be built safely, but there are a large number of failures because of the complicated regulation system, and it's difficult to tell which buildings are safe and which ones won't be. We need a full audit.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. So if we need a full audit, we clearly need it done yesterday. What political pressure will there be? We've been obsessed with Brexit. We apparently now have no dither and delay in Parliament. So if we had the Housing Minister on the programme, we should ask for this audit to begin at 9 o'clock on Monday morning.
They've started the audit of buildings. We asked for it straight on the back of Grenfell. Rather than concentrating on one type of material, we should have done a full audit of all of our buildings. It was obvious that where the concentration was just on the cladding rather than concentrating on the whole of the system, that we were going to find other failures, but we were going to find them too late to be worked on. They've got two bills coming through Parliament now in the Queen's speech. There's a fire safety one and a building safety one, and both of those need to be pushed through as quickly as possible. The Morbic inquiry that starts tomorrow in stage 2 should have been the first report. The report that centred on the fire brigade on the night was the wrong report to do. They should have done the building safety one first of all. The Grenfell fire, as much as a tragedy it was, killing at least 72 people, seemed to just then become that first year focusing on London. We've got high-rise buildings all across the whole country. We needed to be able to look at all of the building safety systems, not just concentrate on what happened with the fire brigade that night.
You might very well be reading what listeners write to us every day about obsession with the capital. Gary Porter, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Lord Porter is in charge of fire safety at the LGA and is a Conservative member of the House of Lords.